Hi there, Tooke here, and welcome to another episode of Exercise of the Week. This week I want to show you a really great glute exercise, the hip extension, or also known as the bridge. So I really love this move because, well, my number one favorite move for the glutes is the deadlift, right? This is how we pick stuff up in our day-to-day life, so it's really functional as well. However, a lot of people don't have proper form when they're doing it, so we don't want to load them up super heavy. So they might not feel like they're really getting a good burn in those glutes. Whereas the hip extension, we don't have to worry so much about the form. It's a little bit easier to do. I don't really have any clients that kind of screw it up. So it's a lot easier just to like really nail those glutes. So as you're kind of getting better at the deadlift and trying to challenge yourself more, this is a move you can do in the meantime to help you build that booty a bit. So as usual, I'm going to show you the move and I'll talk you through it as I'm doing it. And then afterwards, I'll come back to touch on a few key points to keep in mind as you're doing it. So you're going to use a barbell. Ideally, if you have bumper plates, that works great because then you can sit on the floor and just roll the bar onto your thighs. And then you need a bench or a box. If you have the boxes like this one, they're a little fluffy. It feels a little nicer on your back. You could also always throw a towel underneath your shoulder blades too as well. So you'll notice a couple things with the setup. The shin is vertical, so you want your feet to be kind of right underneath your knees. And then you want a little bit of your upper back onto the bench. Now notice every time I'm dropping the bum down, I let the head raise. You really want to focus on maintaining neutral spine. So not changing the angle in your spine at all, just bending at the hips. Now, a few things I tell people to watch out is don't have the feet too far away from you. So you see here, there's a bit of a diagonal angle to my shins. So if you don't have the feet right underneath the knees, then it's just going to work the hamstrings more, right? Getting those shins kind of vertical to the ground, it's just going to focus more on the glutes. Now, the other thing you want to watch is as you drop down, you don't want to see the knees kind of ending up getting closer to the bench, right? So you see then the shins are more diagonal. I find then you're doing an up and an out kind of push instead of a straight up push. Okay, so again, shins are vertical and just pushing up and down. The other thing you want to watch here is that you're not keeping your upper back still and just bending in your torso. Now, if I look at it from the front, what I like to watch is how are the knees tracking when you're dropping your hips. You want to see those knees staying out over the toes and not collapsing in. So some people, just kind of making them aware of it and telling them to keep the knees over the toes, they're able to do so. However, I find some people will still drop in on the knees. So if you're one of those people that even when you think about it, you're still dropping in on the knees, what I like to do is use a band. So you can get those for $5 from any fitness store, and you just bring it up above your knees onto your thighs. And then you're just going to do the hip extension with that band around your thighs. So it's going to pull those knees in a little bit more. So you have to work to push your knees out. So that can help correct if you have the knees collapsing in. The other thing is it's a great way to integrate glute med work into a bigger move exercise like this. The thicker the band, the harder it is. Make sure you're not letting those knees drop in. Okay, so that is the hip extension. So a few things that I like to tell people to focus on when they're doing it. One is to make sure the shin is staying vertical. So if you have too much of an angle in the legs and you're more out like this, it's going to hit your hamstrings more. Whereas if you have that shin completely vertical, it's going to hit your glutes more. The other thing I like to tell people is to focus on, it's just an up movement. So that shin should not really move when you're dropping your bum down. A lot of times when people's bum drops down, instead of the shin staying still, right? This is my thigh, my other finger's my shin. They get that going back and going up. So as they push up, they're also pushed forward. And I always discourage people from doing that because you can end up getting a lot of shear force happening in the knee. So that's like a back and forth. And that's how you end up with like rips and tears in your meniscus. So no good at all, right? And then lastly is making sure those knees track over the toes. So a lot of times when that bum drops down, those knees will drop in. So if you can just cue yourself to kind of push your knees out, that works really well. Or if you find you still struggle with that, then you saw I had the band around the upper thigh. I find that's a really great way to make yourself get those knees over those toes as well. It's also a great way to get your glute med working a bit more on that exercise. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next episode of Exercise of the Week.